My sister's voice rang through the restaurant, shrill and triumphant. "Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this. The investors love my pitch. We're launching next month." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, as Caroline held up her phone, showing our parents what looked like a glossy pitch deck presentation. From where I sat, 3 seats away at our family Sunday brunch, I could see the design. My design. The logo I'd sketched. The business model I'd spent 2 years developing. My name is Victoria Chen. I'm 52 years old, and I've spent the last 18 months building a comprehensive business plan for a boutique consulting firm specializing in supply chain optimization for mid-sized manufacturing companies. I'd invested $47,000 of my own money into market research, trademark registration, and website development. I'd scheduled my launch for April, just 6 weeks away, and apparently my 38-year-old sister had stolen it all. "Show us, show us," my mother gushed, leaning across the table to get a better look at Caroline's phone. I watched, my stomach turning to ice, as Caroline swiped through slides that were nearly identical to the presentation I'd stored on my laptop. The same 3-tier service model, the same target market analysis, even the same projected revenue charts, though she'd changed the colors from blue to purple. "This is incredible, sweetheart," my father said, beaming with pride. "When you came to us last month asking for investment capital, we knew you had something special." Last month. The words hit me like a physical blow. Last month, when Caroline had asked to borrow my laptop because hers was acting weird. Last month, when I'd stupidly, trustingly given her my password. "How much did you invest?" I heard myself ask, my voice surprisingly steady. My father smiled at me, probably thinking I was impressed. $250,000. It's our entire retirement account, but we believe in Caroline's vision. My vision. My research. My 2 years of work. But of course, it was Caroline's now. It had always been Caroline's. Anything she wanted, she got. And what I had, she took. I'd been the responsible one my entire life. The one who worked through college while Caroline partied on our parents' dime. The one who built a successful career as a logistics director at Pemberton Industries, while Caroline bounced from one passion project to another, each funded by our parents. The one who helped them financially when Dad's medical bills piled up 3 years ago, contributing $30,000 while Caroline was too cash-strapped to help. "Victoria, isn't this exciting?" my mother asked, finally acknowledging my presence. "Your sister is finally finding her calling." I looked at Caroline, who was scrolling through her phone with a satisfied smile. For just a moment, our eyes met, and I saw it. She knew. She knew exactly what she'd done, and she didn't care. "It's something," I said quietly, setting down my fork. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and pulled out my phone with shaking hands. I opened my cloud storage and navigated to the folder labeled Phoenix Consulting Launch. Everything was still there. My original files, time-stamped, backed up, documented. Then I opened my business bank account, the one I'd been depositing into for 18 months, the account that showed every market research purchase, every trademark filing, every domain registration, all dated and documented, going back 2 years. Caroline had always been the careless one. She'd copied my work, but she hadn't thought about the paper trail. She'd never had to. Our parents had always smoothed over her mistakes, cleaned up her messes, and blamed me for being too rigid when I objected. I took a deep breath, looking at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired. 52 years old, successful in my corporate career, but invisible in my own family. The daughter who did everything right, but got none of the recognition. That ended today. When I returned to the table, I smiled pleasantly. Caroline, I'd love to hear more about your business plan. When did you start developing it? She barely looked up from her phone. Oh, about 3 months ago. It all just came together really quickly. 3 months. I'd started my research 2 years ago, begun serious development 18 months ago, but I said nothing. Not yet. And the target market? Mid-sized manufacturing companies? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Exactly, she said, finally putting down her phone. It's a really underserved niche. Fascinating, I replied, because that's incredibly specific. How did you identify that particular market gap? My father jumped in, still beaming with pride. Caroline has always had excellent business instincts. Remember when she was in college? She always knew the trends before anyone else. I remembered. She dropped out after 2 years, convinced she could become an influencer. That had lasted 6 months before she moved on to jewelry design, then event planning, then life coaching, then artisanal soap making. Each venture funded by our parents. Each one abandoned when the actual work became too tedious. So you'll be launching next month? I asked Caroline directly. That's the plan, she said, her confidence growing. The incorporation papers should be finalized this week. I've already got 3 meetings scheduled with potential clients. Clients in the manufacturing sector? Of course. She waved her hand dismissively. Honestly, Victoria, you seem really interested in this. Maybe if you'd ever taken a risk and started your own business instead of staying in corporate, you'd understand entrepreneurship. Our mother nodded. Caroline has a point, dear. You've always been so risk-averse. It's wonderful to see your sister being brave. Brave. With their $250,000. With my business plan. With my 2 years of research and development. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery, navigating to a screenshot I'd taken of my business plan 6 months ago, when I'd shared it with my attorney during trademark registration. I placed the phone on the table, sliding it toward Caroline. That's interesting, I said calmly, because this is my business plan. From 6 months ago, time-stamped, with my name on it. Caroline's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. What are you talking about? I pulled up another screenshot. This is my trademark registration for Phoenix Consulting Group, filed 14 months ago. Approved 8 months ago. Another swipe. This is my market research report, purchased from Harris Analytics 13 months ago. Cost me $8,000. The table went silent. This, I continued, pulling up my cloud storage on my phone, is my complete business plan, with version histories dating back 18 months. Every revision time-stamped and saved. My father's smile had vanished. Victoria, what are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, Dad. I'm stating facts. Caroline stole my business plan, changed some colors and fonts, and presented it as her own work. That's ridiculous, Caroline sputtered. I developed this myself. You're just jealous, because for once, I'm the successful one. I looked at my mother, whose expression had shifted from pride to uncertainty. Mom, ask her to explain the 3-tier service model. Ask her what Tier 1 includes. Ask her to describe the market analysis methodology. Caroline's mouth opened and closed. It's all in the presentation, which you stole from my laptop last month when you asked to borrow it. You can't prove that, she snapped. I smiled, though there was no humor in it. Actually, I can. Cloud storage keeps logs of when files are accessed and from which devices. Your laptop accessed my business plan folder on February 13th at 2:30 in the afternoon. I have the access logs. The silence that followed was deafening. My father cleared his throat. Even if some of the ideas were similar, Victoria, you can't accuse your sister of theft. Maybe you both just had similar concepts. Similar? I interrupted, my voice still calm, but harder now. Dad, the projected revenue chart on slide 7 of Caroline's pitch deck uses the exact same data points I gathered from industry reports, the same 3 case studies I compiled, the same client acquisition strategy I developed. This isn't similar. This is identical. Caroline was crying now, but they were angry tears, not remorseful ones. This is so typical of you. You can't stand to see me succeed. You've always been jealous. I felt something inside me snap. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, final breaking of a thread that had been fraying for 52 years. I've spent my entire life watching you succeed on my work, I said quietly. In high school, you turned in my book reports with your name on them. In college, before you dropped out, I wrote 3 of your papers. When you tried event planning, I connected you with all my corporate contacts. When you wanted to be a life coach, I designed your website and marketing materials for free. I looked at our parents, and every single time, you praised her for her initiative, her creativity, her drive. I was just the boring, reliable one, the one who paid for Dad's medical bills while Caroline was too broke to help, the one who loaned you $15,000 when the roof needed replacing. Mom, which, by the way, I've never been paid back. My mother's face flushed. We've been meaning to talk to you about that. I don't want to talk about it. I cut her off. I want you to understand something very clearly. Caroline stole my business plan. You gave her $250,000 to launch my business. And now I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I'm going to protect my own interests. I stood up, gathering my purse. Caroline, if you file those incorporation papers, you'll be infringing on my registered trademark. If you approach any of the clients on my prospect list, which I'm guessing you also copied, you'll be interfering with my established business relationships. And if you launch any business using my proprietary research and methodologies, I will sue you for intellectual property theft. You wouldn't, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. Watch me. My father stood up. Victoria, be reasonable. Your sister has investors now, commitments. She has your money, Dad. Money you chose to give her without asking me a single question, even though you knew I was planning to launch a consulting business. Money you've never offered to invest in anything I've done. The truth of that statement hung in the air. My father sat back down, unable to meet my eyes. I've contacted my attorney, I continued. I'll be filing a cease and desist order tomorrow morning. Caroline, you have 3 options. 1, abandon this project entirely. 2, completely redesign your business model from scratch with no elements from my plan. Or 3, we can have a very public, very expensive legal battle that I will win because I have 2 years of documented proof that this is my intellectual property. I turned to my parents. As for your investment, that's between you and Caroline. But you might want to consider that you just gave $250,000 to someone who couldn't be bothered to develop her own business plan. Victoria, please, my mother started. Reaching for my arm, I stepped back. I've spent 52 years being the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who sacrifices for this family. I'm done. Caroline wanted to be the successful entrepreneur. She can figure out how to be one without stealing from me. As I walked toward the restaurant exit, my father called after me. You're really going to sue your own sister over a business plan? I turned back and last time. No, Dad. I'm going to protect the 2 years of work and $47,000 I invested in building something of my own, something I earned, something I created. The fact that the thief happens to be my sister doesn't change that. The drive home was a blur. My hand shook on the steering wheel, adrenaline and hurt and anger coursing through me in waves. I'd never stood up to them like that before. I'd never drawn such a hard line. When I got home, I immediately called David Roth, the attorney who'd helped me with my trademark registration. He answered on the second ring. David, it's Victoria Chen. I need to schedule an emergency consultation. My sister stole my business plan, and my parents just gave her $250,000 to launch it. There was a brief pause. Forward me everything you have. Documentation, timestamps, access logs, the works. How soon can you come in? Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Bring every piece of evidence you've got. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The business plan I'd worked on for so long stared back at me from the screen. Phoenix Consulting Group, rising from the ashes of a corporate career to build something independent, something mine. My phone started buzzing. Text messages from Caroline, from my mother, even one from my father. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I composed a group email to the 15 industry contacts I'd been planning to approach as potential clients. Dear colleagues, I wanted to inform you that I'll be launching Phoenix Consulting Group in April as planned. If you're contacted by anyone else claiming to represent this business or a similar service model, please note that Phoenix Consulting Group is a registered trademark, and I am the sole proprietor. I look forward to discussing how we can work together. I sent the email, effectively locking down my client prospects before Caroline could approach them. Then, I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do in years. I poured a glass of wine, sat on my back porch, and let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal. Not just Caroline's theft, but my parents' complicity. Their willingness to fund her dream without asking if it might be stepping on mine. Their pattern, repeated over 5 decades, of prioritizing her wants over my needs. By the time I went to bed that night, I cried, raged, and finally settled into a cold, clear determination. This was it, the line in the sand. I would protect my business, my work, and most importantly, my self-respect. No more being the reliable one they could take advantage of. No more sacrificing my success for Caroline's latest venture. No more playing the role of the boring, responsible daughter while she got to be the creative, beloved risk taker. From now on, I came first. The meeting with David Roth confirmed what I'd already known. My case was airtight. This is one of the clearest cases of intellectual property theft I've seen outside of corporate espionage, he said, reviewing the evidence I'd brought. Time-stamped files, registered trademarks, access logs showing she accessed your cloud storage, documentation of every research purchase and development cost. Victoria, if this goes to court, you'll win. Easily. How long will it take? I asked. The cease and desist letter goes out today. She has 10 business days to respond. If she doesn't comply, we file for an injunction. That could take a few weeks to get a hearing, but given the strength of your case, I'd expect a ruling in your favor. And my parents' investment? David leaned back in his chair. That's trickier. If Caroline used their money to develop a business based on stolen intellectual property, they could potentially sue her for return of their investment, arguing fraud. But that's a separate issue. Your concern is protecting your business and your IP. What if she just changes the name and tries to launch anyway? That's why we include specific language about the proprietary methodologies, market research, and business model. Even if she calls it something else, if she's using your work, she's still infringing. David sent the cease and desist letter that afternoon, with copies to Caroline, my parents, and the investors Caroline had mentioned. The letter was comprehensive, detailing every piece of evidence and making it clear that any attempt to launch a business using my intellectual property would result in immediate legal action. The response came faster than expected. My mother called at 6 p.m., her voice shaking with anger. How could you do this to your sister? I took a deep breath. Mom, Caroline stole from me. I'm protecting my work. You're destroying her. Do you know how humiliating it is that she had to tell her investors the deal is off? They think she's a fraud. She is a fraud, I said calmly. She stole a 2-year-old business plan and presented it as her own work. What did you expect me to do? Let her take credit for everything I built? You're family. You should support each other. The anger that had been simmering since Sunday flared hot. I have supported her. For 52 years, I've supported her. I wrote her papers, designed her websites, connected her with clients. I supported you and Dad financially when Caroline couldn't. When exactly has this family supported me? That's not fair. What's not fair, I interrupted, is that you gave Caroline $250,000 without asking me a single question. You knew I was planning to launch a consulting business. You've known that for over a year. Did you ever consider that maybe, just maybe, you should verify that Caroline's brilliant idea wasn't stolen from me? Silence. She's your daughter, my mother finally said, her voice small. So am I. But I've never been the daughter you invested in, have I? After I hung up, I felt hollowed out. There was no satisfaction in being right, only a deep, aching sadness at having to protect myself from the people who should have been protecting me. That evening, my brother Marcus called. At 48, he'd always been the neutral middle child, staying out of family drama and focusing on his own life in Seattle. I heard what happened, he said. Mom called me. I sighed. Let me guess. I'm the villain. Actually, Marcus said slowly, I told her she and Dad screwed up. Big time. I sat up straighter. You did? Victoria, I've watched this dynamic for decades. You're the responsible one, so you get taken for granted. Caroline's the creative free spirit, so she gets coddled and funded. It's not fair. It's never been fair. And I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you. I also told Mom that if you're taking legal action, it's because you have to protect yourself, because they taught you that you can't rely on them to do it. We talked for an hour, and for the first time in years, I felt seen by a family member. Marcus understood. He'd watched the same favoritism play out, had his own smaller grievances about the inequity of our parents' treatment. "What are you going to do about the business?" he asked eventually. "Launch is planned. April 1st. I've got 15 client prospects, 3 of whom have already confirmed interest in preliminary consultations. Caroline tried to steal my work, but she can't steal my expertise." "Good," Marcus said firmly. "And if you need anything, a reference, a loan, whatever, call me. It's about time someone in this family invested in you." After we hung up, I pulled up my business plan and started working on my launch presentation. Caroline had tried to take my dream, but she'd failed. And in trying, she'd actually given me something unexpected. Clarity. I was done playing by rules that only benefited everyone else. 10 days after the cease and desist letter, Caroline requested a meeting. Not through our parents, but directly through David Roth's office, professional and formal, which told me she'd finally consulted an attorney of her own. We met at David's conference room. Caroline arrived with a lawyer I didn't recognize, a young woman in an expensive suit, who introduced herself as Jennifer Park. They sat across from David and me, the polished table between us feeling like a gulf. Caroline looked different. The triumphant confidence from that Sunday brunch had evaporated, replaced by dark circles under her eyes and a tension in her shoulders I'd never seen before. "My client would like to discuss a resolution," Jennifer began, her tone professionally neutral. "We've reviewed the evidence, and while we contest some of the claims—" "Which claims?" David interrupted calmly. Jennifer glanced at Caroline, who was staring at the table. "We acknowledge that there are similarities between Ms. Caroline Chen's business proposal and Ms. Victoria Chen's documented business plan." "Similarities," I repeated, my voice flat. Caroline finally looked up at me. "Victoria, I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. The launch, I mean. You've been talking about starting your own business for years, but you never did anything about it." The casual dismissal in her words ignited something in me. "I've been actively planning for 2 years. I filed a trademark 18 months ago. I invested $47,000 of my own money. What exactly did you think I was doing?" "I thought," she trailed off, looking away. "I thought it was just one of those things you talked about, but never followed through on. Like when you said you'd write a book or take that sabbatical year. You always have plans, but you never actually take the leap." The words stung because there was a kernel of truth in them. I had been cautious, careful, risk-averse. I'd delayed my launch 3 times, making sure everything was perfect, every detail planned. While I was being responsible and thorough, Caroline had seen hesitation and inaction. "So you decided to steal my work and do it yourself," I said quietly. "I was going to tell you," Caroline said, her voice rising defensively. "I was going to bring you in as a partner once everything was set up. I swear, Victoria, I wasn't trying to cut you out. I just wanted to prove I could do something real, something successful. And Mom and Dad were finally taking me seriously for once. On my work," I cut her off. "You proved you could steal and lie convincingly. Congratulations." Jennifer cleared her throat. "Ms. Chen, my client is prepared to offer a settlement. She'll abandon the business venture entirely and sign an agreement not to pursue any competing business in the supply chain consulting space for 5 years. In exchange, you agree not to pursue further legal action. David looked at me. We'd discussed this possibility. The cease and desist had already accomplished its main goal, stopping Caroline from launching with my business plan. A settlement would avoid a lengthy court battle and legal fees. But I wasn't thinking about practicality. I was thinking about 52 years of being the afterthought. What about my parents' investment? I asked, looking directly at Caroline. She paled. What about it? They gave you $250,000 based on a stolen business plan. That's fraud, Caroline. They could sue you to get it back. They wouldn't. They might, I said calmly, especially when they realize they're not getting the return on investment you promised them. Jennifer interjected. Ms. Chen, are you attempting to drag your parents into this dispute? I'm not dragging anyone anywhere, I replied, keeping my eyes on Caroline. I'm simply pointing out the full scope of what my sister did. She didn't just steal from me. She defrauded our parents. She lied to investors. She was prepared to build an entire business on intellectual property that wasn't hers. Caroline's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. What more do you want from me? What did I want? I'd been asking myself the question for 10 days. Did I want her to suffer? Did I want to punish her? Or did I just want what I'd always wanted? To be seen, valued, and respected by my own family. I want you to understand something, I said finally. For my entire life, you've gotten everything easily. College paid for while I worked 2 jobs. Business ventures funded while I saved every penny. Praise and attention while I quietly did all the work. And the one time I built something entirely on my own, you tried to take that too. I know. I'm not finished, I said firmly. I don't think you do know. I don't think you have any idea what it's like to be the responsible one, the reliable one, the one everyone takes for granted, to watch your younger sister get every opportunity handed to her while you have to fight for scraps of recognition. The tears were streaming down Caroline's face now, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a cold, clear certainty. I'll accept your settlement offer, I told Jennifer, with one addition. Carolyn makes a formal statement to our parents explaining what she did. Not some vague apology about mistakes or similar ideas. A full confession that she stole my business plan, copied my research, and defrauded them. Victoria, please, Carolyn started. That's my offer, I said, standing up. David, draft the agreement. Caroline has 24 hours to decide. I walked out of the conference room without looking back. That evening, my father called. His voice was strained, aged in a way I hadn't heard before. Carolyn told us everything. I waited, saying nothing. I don't know what to say, Victoria. Your mother and we thought we were helping her finally find her path. We had no idea. You never asked, I said quietly. You never called me to verify her business plan. You never questioned how she suddenly developed expertise in supply chain consulting. You just assumed Caroline had finally done something on her own. We should have known, he admitted. We should have questioned it. But Caroline was so confident, so excited, and you've always been so independent, so successful in your career. We thought, he trailed off. You thought I didn't need your support. I finished for him. Because I never asked for it. Because I handled everything myself. So you gave it all to Caroline instead. That's not fair, isn't it? I asked. Dad, when have you and Mom ever invested in something I was doing? When have you offered to help me start a business, or buy a house, or take a risk? You've helped Caroline with rent, with car payments, with business ventures. You paid for her wedding. You gave her a down payment on her condo. What have you ever given me besides advice to be more realistic about my expectations? The silence on the other end was answer enough. I loaned you $30,000 when you had medical bills. I continued, my voice steady, despite the emotion building in my chest. I gave Mom $15,000 for the roof. I've been the one who shows up for every holiday, every birthday, every family crisis, and the one time I needed you to see me, to protect my interests, you gave my sister $250,000 to steal my life's work. Victoria, we didn't know. You didn't ask, I corrected. And that's the problem. It never occurred to you to ask. When I hung up, I felt empty. There was no victory in being right, no satisfaction in finally saying everything I'd kept buried for decades. There was just loss, the loss of the family I'd wished I had, replaced by the reality of the family I actually did. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mom called me crying. You okay? I typed back. Not really, but I will be. His response came immediately. Good. Proud of you, sis. That simple message meant more than he probably realized. Caroline signed the settlement agreement the next day. David sent me the executed documents along with a brief email. She also agreed to the confession requirement. Meeting with your parents is scheduled for tomorrow. I didn't attend that meeting. I didn't need to hear Caroline's explanation or witness our parents' reaction. This was between them. My part in it was done. What I did instead was focus on my business launch. I spent the next 2 weeks finalizing my presentation materials, conducting preliminary consultations with potential clients, and setting up my home office. I created a simple website, ordered business cards, and officially opened Phoenix Consulting Group for business on April 1st, exactly as planned. My first client came from an unexpected source. Richard Pemberton, the CEO of Pemberton Industries, where I'd worked for 17 years, called me personally. Victoria, I heard you left to start your own consulting firm. I wanted to reach out before someone else snapped you up. I was surprised. I thought Pemberton had an in-house logistics team now. We do, Richard said, but they're overwhelmed. And frankly, they don't have your expertise. I'd like to contract Phoenix Consulting for a 6-month project, supply chain optimization, for our new manufacturing facility. Interested? The contract he proposed was worth $180,000, more than I'd expected to earn in my entire first year. Very interested, I managed. Excellent. Send over your terms and we'll get the paperwork started. And Victoria, I always knew you were too good for middle management. Glad you're finally betting on yourself. After we hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen in disbelief. My first major client, secured not through my parents' investment or Caroline's theft, but through my own reputation and years of building professional relationships. I called Marcus. I just landed a 6-month contract worth $180,000. His whoop of joy was so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. That's incredible. See? You didn't need their money. You built this yourself. He was right. I had built this myself. Every piece of research, every relationship, every skill. This was mine, in a way that Caroline's stolen version never could have been. Over the next few weeks, 2 more clients signed on. My calendar filled with consultations and project kickoff meetings. I hired a part-time assistant to help with administrative work. Phoenix Consulting Group wasn't just a plan anymore. It was real, operational, and succeeding. My parents tried to reach out several times. Dinner invitations, phone calls, a handwritten letter from my mother. I responded politely, but distantly. I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine, to slip back into old patterns where my hurt was smoothed over in the name of family harmony. What I was ready for was the conversation that came 6 weeks after the settlement, when my mother showed up at my house unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon. I almost didn't answer the door. Through the window, I could see her standing on my porch, looking smaller and older than I remembered. Finally, I opened it. "I know you don't want to see me," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "But I need to say something, and I need you to hear it." I stepped aside, letting her in. We sat in my living room, the space between us on the couch feeling wider than 3 feet. "Your father and I have been in therapy," she said. "After everything that happened, we realized we needed help understanding how we failed you so completely." I said nothing, waiting. The therapist helped us see patterns we'd been blind to for decades. How we enabled Caroline because she was struggling and took you for granted because you were successful. How we measured love by who needed us most, rather than who deserved our support equally. She twisted her hands in her lap. "We've asked Caroline to pay back the investment. She doesn't have it, obviously, so she signed a promissory note. It'll take her years, but we're not letting her off the hook. She needs to face the consequences of what she did." "That's between you and her," I said quietly. "I know, but I wanted you to know that we see it now. We see how unfair we've been, how much we've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive us immediately, or maybe ever, but I needed you to know that we're sorry, truly, deeply sorry." I looked at my mother, seeing the genuine remorse in her face, and felt the tight knot in my chest loosen slightly. This wasn't absolution, and it wasn't a return to normal, but it was acknowledgement. It was them finally seeing what I'd been trying to tell them my entire life. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied carefully. "But Mom, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same daughter I was 2 months ago. I'm not going to keep sacrificing myself to keep the peace. I'm not going to pretend everything's fine, just because it's uncomfortable to face the truth." "I know," she whispered. "I'm not asking you to. I've built something real here," I continued, gesturing around my home office. "Something that's mine, something I earned, and I need to protect that, even if it means protecting it from family." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, and I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of who you are and what you've accomplished, not because you're the responsible one, but because you're brilliant and determined and stronger than I ever gave you credit for." The words I'd waited 52 years to hear should have felt more satisfying. Instead, they just felt sad. Sad for all the time we'd wasted, all the hurt that could have been avoided. "Thank you," I said finally. "That means more than you probably realize." We talked for another hour. not resolving everything. Some wounds were too deep for one conversation, but beginning the slow, painful process of rebuilding on more honest ground. After she left, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, watching the spring sun set over my neighborhood. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Another potential client, referred by one of my existing contracts. This was my life now, built on my own terms, protected by boundaries I'd finally learned to set, valued for the work I actually did, rather than the role I was expected to play. Caroline had tried to steal my dream, and in doing so, she'd given me something unexpected. The final push I needed to stop waiting for permission to succeed, to stop hoping my family would finally see my worth and start insisting on it myself. Phoenix Consulting Group wasn't just rising from the ashes of a corporate career. It was rising from the ashes of who I used to be, the daughter who made herself small so others could shine. I was done being small. 3 months after launching Phoenix Consulting Group, I stood in front of an audience of 200 logistics professionals at the Regional Supply Chain Conference. The keynote speaker had canceled at the last minute, and the conference organizer had asked if I'd be willing to step in. My topic: building independent success from corporate to consulting. As I presented case studies from my first quarter in business, including the Pemberton Industries project that had exceeded all projections, I caught sight of a familiar face in the audience. Caroline was sitting in the back row, partially hidden behind a column. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw something I'd never seen in her before: genuine respect mixed with regret. I didn't acknowledge her during the presentation. I didn't need to. The success spoke for itself. After the keynote, during the networking reception, Caroline approached me. She looked nervous, uncertain, nothing like the confident woman who'd bragged about her business plan at Sunday brunch. "That was an impressive presentation," she said quietly. "Thank you. I've been working on something," she continued, the words coming out in a rush. "A completely different business concept. Event planning for corporate wellness retreats. I developed it entirely on my own this time. Hired a business consultant to help me. I'm launching small, just local clients. Nothing like," she trailed off, "nothing like the business you tried to steal from me," I finished for her. She flinched, but nodded. "I just wanted you to know that I'm doing it right this time. And I wanted to say again that I'm sorry. Not because Mom and Dad made me, or because of the legal settlement, but because I finally understand what I took from you." I studied her for a moment. This apology felt different from the tearful excuses in David's conference room. This one came with no expectations, no requests for forgiveness or reconciliation. "I hope it works out for you," I said finally, genuinely. "But Caroline, we can't go back to how things were." "I know," she replied. "I don't expect us to. I just needed you to know that I see you now. I see what you built, what you've always been capable of, and I'm sorry it took something this awful for me to recognize it." After she left, Marcus appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of wine. He'd driven down from Seattle specifically for my keynote. "That looked intense," he observed. "It was honest," I replied, "which is more than I expected." We found a quiet corner of the reception hall, away from the networking crowds. "How are things with Mom and Dad?" Marcus asked. "Better, slowly better. We have dinner once a month now. They ask about the business. Actually, Listen when I talk about my work. It's not perfect, but it's more real than it's ever been. And the business? I smiled. Booked solid through the end of the year. I just hired my first full-time employee, a junior consultant I'm training. I'm actually looking at office space because working from home isn't cutting it anymore. Marcus raised his glass. To Phoenix Consulting Group, and to my brilliant sister, who finally stopped waiting for permission to soar. We clinked glasses, and I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the wine. This success, every client, every contract, every presentation, was built on my own merit. No stolen plans, no family investment, no shortcuts, just years of expertise, careful planning, and finally, the courage to bet on myself. That evening, as I drove home through the city lights, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. The woman who'd sat at a family brunch and watched her sister steal her life's work. The woman who'd been so desperate for her parents' recognition that she'd buried her own hurt for decades. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, clearer, more certain of her own worth. Caroline had tried to steal my dream, but she'd failed. Not because I'd fought harder or been smarter, but because you can't steal someone's expertise, their reputation, their years of built relationships, and proven competence. Those things were mine, earned through decades of work that Caroline could never replicate by copying a presentation deck. The real Phoenix wasn't the business. It was me, rising from the ashes of a family dynamic that had kept me small, finally claiming the space I'd always deserved, and I was just getting started. 1 year after launching Phoenix Consulting Group, I hosted an open house at my new office space, a renovated brick building in downtown, with windows overlooking the city and enough room for my growing team of 4 consultants. The guest list was carefully curated. Professional contacts, clients, and a select few family members. Marcus came, of course, with his wife and teenage daughter. My parents arrived, looking both proud and slightly uncomfortable, still navigating this new relationship where I set the boundaries. Caroline wasn't invited. That bridge wasn't burned, but it needed more time before it could be rebuilt. As I gave tours of the office, the conference room, the individual workspaces, the small break area with a coffee bar, I overheard my father talking to Richard Pemberton. I have to admit, Richard, I underestimated what my daughter was capable of. I thought she needed our help, our capital, to make this work. Turns out, she just needed us to get out of her way. Richard laughed. Victoria's been the best logistics mind I've worked with in 30 years. You raised a remarkable woman. We did, my father agreed. We just didn't appreciate her properly for far too long. Later, as guests mingled and I replenished the appetizer table, my mother pulled me aside. This is incredible, Victoria. Everything you've built here. I wish we'd supported you from the beginning. You're supporting me now, I replied. That matters. She squeezed my hand. Caroline asked if she could send you something. A congratulations card for the office opening. I told her to ask you directly, not put me in the middle, but I wanted you to know she's thinking about you. I nodded. Tell her she can send it. But, Mom, I'm not ready for more than that yet. I understand. I'll let her know. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, I stood at the window of my office, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a message from David Roth. Congratulations on the office. You've come a long way from that conference room confrontation. Proud of you. I smiled, typing back. Thanks for having my back when it mattered most. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Quite a turnout. You should be proud. I am, I replied honestly. For the first time in my life, I'm genuinely proud of myself. Not because someone else validated me, but because I know what this took. The risk, the work, the courage to walk away from security and build something from scratch. And to stand up to your family when it mattered, Marcus added. That too. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. You know what the best part is? I said finally. Caroline tried to take the easy way. She wanted the success without the work, the recognition without the expertise. And she ended up with nothing but shame and legal fees. While you built the real thing, Marcus finished. Exactly. This isn't just a business. It's proof that there are no shortcuts to genuine success. You can steal a plan, but you can't steal competence. You can copy a presentation, but you can't fake years of experience and proven results. As I locked up the office for the night, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from that devastating Sunday brunch to this moment of triumph. It had been painful, messy, and absolutely necessary. I'd learned that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. That loyalty without reciprocity is just exploitation. That being responsible and reliable doesn't mean being invisible and undervalued. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't need my family's investment or approval to succeed. I needed my own courage, my own skills, and my own unwavering belief in my worth. Phoenix Consulting Group was thriving, but the real Phoenix was me, transformed by fire into something stronger, clearer, and finally Chi. The woman who'd sat at that restaurant table 6 months ago, watching her sister steal her dream, would barely recognize the woman I'd become. And that was exactly as it should be. Some things are worth protecting, even if, especially if, you have to protect them from the people who should have valued them all along.